good afternoon or good morning, and good evening, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
It's very nice to have you all with us today. It's a great week to start the weekend. Okay, great. I think we can start then. So a warm welcome from Brussels to all of you who are joining us today from over the world to our first UN series event on the UN Water Conference this year. My name is Lena, and I lead the UN series at YPFP in Brussels. It's a nonprofit organization headquartered in Washington, D.C., with branches worldwide, and we present thousands of members intending to foster the next generation of foreign policy leaders. And we do this through professional training, high-level events, and networking opportunities. And together with my director, Petra, who's also here on the call. Hi, Petra. And my colleagues from YPFP Tokyo, Jay and Dr. Purvi, who are also here with us. It's lovely to have you here. We welcome all of you to this exciting event. And please welcome our speakers, Himaja, the 11th Youth Observer to the United Nations. We have Cyril Null with us, the founder and managing director of Eodacité. We have Dr. Carmen Marquez-Ruiz, the EU Climate Pact Ambassador with us. We welcome Pashang, PhD candidate in hydrology, and he is also the regional youth focal point in Northern Africa and Western Asia at the UN International Federation of Youth. We have Grace Silver with us, who's the director of WASH Sustainability and Engagement at Clean International. And we have Iris with us, who's the youth messenger of climate science and the leader of local and international initiatives, such as the Sunrise Movement Howard County Hub and Fridays for Future Digital. So before I yield the floor to Himaja, who will give short opening remarks and then give the floor to our guests to their brief introductions, I would kindly like to remind everyone that we would like to record this event for streaming it towards after for our YPFP Tokyo family. And a Q&A session will follow this as an interesting discussion. And please ask only one question at a time. You can post the question either in the chat or you can raise your hand and be granted the floor. And with that being said, Himaja, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lena. Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to be calling in. I'm based in the Boston area right now. And so it's super early, or not really super early, but it's super great to see you all early in the morning here in Boston. Yeah, as Lena mentioned, my name is Himaja. I serve as the 11th Youth Observer to the UN. My term is actually quickly finishing. We hand off to our 12th Youth Observer in August, so nearing the end of my term, but my role is to really uplift the voices of global youth in policy decision-making spaces around international issues of importance, primarily at the UN. My background's in environmental health epidemiology, and so attending this water conference was such a cool nexus of all these different things that I work on, oftentimes in parallel, and really merge together so much of what I do. So it was a really fantastic experience, and can't wait to hear what everyone else thought about it as well, and kind of key takeaways.
Thank you so much, Himaja. This is very, very cool to have you on board with us. And we would like to start with Dr. Carmen Marquez-Ruiz, who will give the first presentation. Thank you, Carmen. The floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon. I am in Spain, so it's the afternoon here. I am very pleased to be able to talk to this forum. And I see that there is a large majority of young people. And so the topic is the post-UN Water Conference of 2023. I would like to introduce myself because I'm a European Climate Pact Ambassador, and I used to be a European official who worked on different foreign policy issues, including water diplomacy. Now, I am part of a team of ambassadors who work to make sure that, there is awareness on climate change, that, the European Green Deal is understood, and that, that the EU citizens are encouraged to take action. We are volunteers. We are very diverse in terms of ages, in terms of professional background, and we work on the basis of principles and values such as transparency, ambition, science-based approach, no greenwashing, and also making sure that the global issues, the global challenges have also a local reality, a local reaction. And also we have no instruction. So we are people who are volunteers who have to respect these principles. As an ambassador, I give lectures, I take part in roundtables, I also support local initiatives, and I work with a team of young people like you, and they help me with a webpage, with newsletter, with social media, and also I coordinate the Spanish ambassadors, and we organize meetings on climate change on our activities. What was my role at the UN Water Conference? I was an observer. So what I did is that I followed the debates of the conference as an observer. And this is out of plenty of work, as many of you will know. There were so many different conferences, lectures, initiatives. But I also organized a side event on the European Climate Pact, the link between water and climate change. Because very often, these two elements are not linked sufficiently, and the two communities work in parallel. So we organized a side event with other ambassadors, and also as such, we also made two commitments. One is to raise awareness about the link between climate change and water, and the second is we committed ourselves to publish a book next year on water as a symbol and a metaphor, where we will also talk about the UN Water Conference. This UN Water Conference was a landmark, because in fact we had to wait for almost 50 years to have a conference organized at the UN on water issues. And so the EU committed to improve transboundary cooperation across water basins, to strengthen regional integration, and also the EU committed to make water a key driver for sustainable development and peace. And so in this means that in practice, the European Union systematically includes water in its political dialogue with third countries and regions. Also, the EU makes sure that water is a priority in its development cooperation. The European Union also supports regional cooperation on water, and also the institutions that support transboundary water cooperation, like the river commissions, the commissions that deal with rivers crossing different countries. And this support takes the form of funding and also political support. And finally, also the European Union has supported the UN efforts to promote the transboundary water cooperation, and also the efforts to encourage countries to accede to the UNEC Water Convention. This was, something that I used to do before I retired. I was working on this part of the EU foreign policy, the EU water diplomacy, and it was very important in our work to make sure that whatever the European Union was doing was also done supporting the UN efforts in this respect, and the international cooperation at large. So what is the European position on water, and what exactly means water diplomacy? For the European Union, water above all is a tool for peace, and also water is a human right. So it means, water is a tool for peace. It means that it's true that water can be the cause of conflicts, but we have to make sure in our diplomacy that water is also used to make sure that we promote cooperation among countries who are sharing a river basin or a river resource or a water resource. We also are very keen in making sure that water is a human right. We have had, the recognition of these human rights through UN resolutions. And in fact, 2 member states, Germany and Spain, were very active in this respect. And for us, it's a key point of our approach. In third place, I would like to say that water is also key for sustainable development, for SDG 6. And in this respect, our development cooperation is, is supporting lots of water projects in many countries. And finally, also, water and climate are closely interlinked, because it is, very often water is ignored. Until recently, the main focus in environmental issues is on climate change, and there is a reason, because climate change, the climate crisis is growing and is becoming more and more acute. But the water crisis is also affecting us, either because we have too much water through floods and heavy rains, or because we have very serious droughts. So we have to make sure that whenever we talk about climate change, we also talk about water. And whenever we talk about water and we try to find solutions in water, we also take into account this climate change dimension. We have to make sure that we don't work in silos. And so I wanted also to explain what water diplomacy means, at least for me. It's the use of foreign policy tools about water to make sure to sustain peace, to sustain development, and to protect the human rights. And this was, all these different elements of the EU position on water are very clearly explained in the Council conclusions on water diplomacy that were adopted, in different stages in 2013, in 2018 and 2021. But the ones I was involved was the ones of 2018. And of course, I think that they are the best, but that's my personal opinion. But it was a very good occasion to try to pull together the different knowledges and approaches on water. Right now, I would like to say, I would like to make an assessment of this UN Water Conference. As I said, we had to wait for 50 years to have a UN Water Conference after the conference of Mar del Plata, because water is very often a forgotten subject. And so everybody had very high expectations of this water conference. And I have to say that the conference was a success, although, one has to admit that it also suffered from all, the problems that are affecting international cooperation nowadays, with the war in Ukraine, with the geopolitical confrontation, with the economic crisis. But already organizing this kind of conference was a very important step, because it helped to focus and galvanize international public opinion on water, and it also mobilized many stakeholders. So in view of the very severe global water crisis, we had governments, we had businesses, we had the civil society, we had academic institutions who committed billions of dollars to advance the water action agenda. So that was really the main output of the conference, with more than 700 voluntary commitments, the creation of an international scientific panel on water, several international meetings foreseen in the future. Also, this clear will to make this link between water and climate change. Another important positive development was the close involvement of the youth in this water conference. For example, in our side event, we made sure that we had 2 young activists, so that we had people of my age and also people who were younger. And also, it was important, it was clear that we had to make sure to overcome silos. What is the way forward for the European Union now that the water conference has finished? The way forward is for the EU is to make sure to implement its voluntary commitments and encourage others to do the same. So the European Union is an international leader on water, and some of its member states, like like the Netherlands, Hungary, Slovenia, Sweden, Spain, are in the front line. So we have to make sure that we continue sharing our experience with other countries, and also that we support international cooperation. on a personal note, what are the biggest challenges regarding water for the European Union, and how should we address this to meet the SDG 6? For the biggest challenges are, we need to value water. We are facing a huge water crisis due to the climate change that is having a strong impact on water. And a clear example of this is Spain. We now have a very severe drought. And this is also leading to some conflict between the central government and the local government in Andalusia concerning Doñana, for example. A second big problem is that we have an increasing demand due to the rising of a world population, linked also to unsustainable use of water plus pollution. So all this is a kind of a Molotov cocktail that is going to explode at any time. So another biggest challenge in my opinion is that we have very serious problems of governance, including at the international level. As you are a community of foreign policy professionals, and you know that we have serious problems on many topics, many global challenges. And I think that a very serious concern affecting all these global challenges is that the international governance is really lacking, strength and lacking dynamism. We have institutions and procedures that come from the past that don't help us to solve the present problems that should allow us to face the future with more optimism. So we have a serious problem of governance also on water, especially at international level. For example, we don't have an international institution that is clearly responsible for this. We have a kind of network of different agencies, and they don't always work on the same, alignment. A fourth problem that I see as a challenge is the need of big investments at a moment of economic crisis. So we need, the financing needs range between 182 to 600 billion US dollars annually. And and we are facing at the same time a huge economic crisis that makes the use of finding these funds very difficult. So how should we address these challenges? In my view, these are some ideas. Of course, you will come with many more, but first would be raising awareness and mobilizing public opinion in order to make sure that we value water. Second, improving governance, and as I said, in particular at the international level. Third, making sure that we have a strong link between water and climate communities, and that the political attention that is given to climate change is also given to water. Fourth is promoting sustainable use through education and public policies. Then another important element to be taken into account, that we have to start reusing water. So we have to make sure that we have the technologies and the innovation on that. So funding innovation and new technologies in water is very important. Then, of course, taking into account these huge financing needs, we need to mobilize public and private funds. Public finance will not be enough. We will also have to find sources from the private sector and the banking sector. It's very important also, in my view, to work with local communities. We cannot go somewhere and impose your solutions. You have to make sure that you listen the local communities, because they know their context, and they can come up with interesting solutions that are much more adapted to the local context. And as a global consideration, we also need to use water as a tool for peace, because in a context of increasing water scarcity, the risk of conflict is going to increase, and we need to make sure that water is not used as a way to polarizing and to confront communities and countries and regions, but as a way to develop international cooperation and understanding. And that's all. Thank you very much. And I'm very happy, very thankful that you have invited me to this discussion.
Thank you very much, Carmen, for these great insights. And speaking of water and the linking to climate change, I would like to give the floor to Pashang to speak a little bit about his work. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are in the world. So I would like, my name is Peshang Hamakarim, and I'm from the Kurdistan region of Iraq. I'm currently based in Warsaw, in Poland. So I came from a hot region, a warm region to a cold region. And now I'm studying my PhD in the field of hydrology. So I have a direct relation with water and the water scarcity, especially the effect of the climate change on existing artificial reservoirs, which we use mostly for fresh waters. And I can see the change that's happening in our water around us. So the history of my advocacy started back in 2018 in Berlin when Mr. Al Gore trained me to be a climate reality leader. I realized that throughout, he has a long presentation, more than 500-600 slides, which covered in 3 days. I learned that we need to work together because climate change is an issue of all humanity, not just it's an issue of climate advocates. So we have to include everyone who are off-grid of the climate issues and bring them together to work, because we cannot achieve this alone as NGOs or as governments alone. So we need everyone in this platform. Then I started my organization back in Iraq. I said, with the motivation, I have to do something in Iraq. So basically, we started an initiative, and we said that people are using social media, so let's go for it. We created, I'm talking about a 5 million population land in northern Iraq, and we created the biggest Facebook group, more than 100,000 members inside. And when we post something in the group, it has a direct impact in the governmental level. So, and it was really challenging and very fun, exciting for us, because we are doing something and we are seeing the results. So the cabinet office of the government called us, okay, we need your plans. Then, okay, we submit them our work. And after that, I said that, Peshang, okay, in Iraq, in your community, you have achieved something, but there's a lack of being international. So try to be in an international platform so that you bring the voice of your community to the international platforms, to the negotiation tables, and get the knowledge and expertise from them to implement it in Iraq. So that was the idea. Then I started to be an advocate for UNGO back in COI16 in Glasgow. And after that, I was the country coordinator of Iraq. Then I meet many nice, motivated young leaders around the globe, from Philippines till the people from Alaska. So it was quite a nice journey for me. And the symphony was very nice. Different cultures, different ethnic, different religions, they all work for the same thing. So I was really excited to work there. And after that, COI17 came and they told me, Peshang, we have a spot at Unify. So if you want, join us and be the regional youth focal point for Western Asia and Northern Africa. Wow. I said, okay, Peshang worked for Iraq, but how can he work for a big region? So it was a quite challenge for me, but I said, let's try this and let's grow our connections and let's be more international. So I joined Unify. So I will present a small presentation. It won't be boring, I promise. So what's Unify and what was our job, which is directly related to what UN Water Conference. So if you, okay, I'm presenting and I hope that you will be able to. Can you see my screen? I hope you are. Okay. So basically, I'm starting from this slide. As my colleague Carmen mentioned that our last UN Water Conference was back in 1977 in Argentina. And for more than 40 years, no one thought about water. No one correlated water with other issues. We tried to solve climate change without thinking about water. And so all the UN entities realized that SDG 6 is left behind. And without SDG 6, we cannot move forward. So back in 2017, they 13 UN entity tried to make a coalition and named as Water and Climate Coalition. So, and in 2018, they announced the Water Action Decade. So 2018 to 2028. And they divided it into two parts. So why UN 2023 conference happened for water? So it was the middle of the decade. So 2018 till 2023. And the goal was to minimize the gap between the developing and developed countries in terms of the problems of water. But still, something was missing in the big picture, which was youth, which represent more than 30% of the world. So it was missing in the picture. So they tried to have a youth entity which is working a new blood that collides and gives them an output, a solution, a roadmap, an agenda. So UNIFY was born, and UNIFY is an acronym for United International Federation of Youth for Water and Climate, because it's the Water and Climate Coalition, so it becomes for Water and Climate. Then UNIFY is two sides. So UNIFY, United International Federation of Youth, which as a fest, and United as a movement, and United International Festival of Youth. So it can be a youth gathering and a federation. And UNIFY is not an organization, so we are not. It wasn't a duplicate or having another organization in the line of the youth. Then it was, and the Water and Climate Coalition is hosted by the WMO in Geneva, Switzerland. So the WMO endorsed UNIFY, and we became the youth baby of WMO and Water and Climate Coalition. And back in 2022, UNIFY was presented during the briefing of the UN 2023 Water Conference as the official youth input to the UN 2023 Water Conference. And in Dushanbe, Tajikistan, last year in June, in the Dushanbe Declaration, there was a key message that they support and encourage the participation of young people, and they acknowledged a new thing that we were working for more than 1 year, which was the Water and Climate Youth Development Plan and Agenda. So we worked for 1 year just to build an agenda. And ladies and gentlemen, finally a book was created. That was because the major output of UNIFY was to produce Water and Climate Youth Development Plan and Agenda, so which is a key output that's taken from the perception of the youth, and which we dedicate the challenge the challenge that the youth are facing around the world, and from that point we dedicate the challenge and the things that they face. From those points, we take the decisions, we take the solutions that they can get, and we formulate the stakeholder specific recommendations. So basically, we have many stakeholders. So stakeholder specific recommendations in form of PPPAs, so actionable policies, projects, programs, and activities. And this document is an evidence-based and data-driven. So the YDPA drafting and synthesize process also was followed in a form of an inclusive and consultative and representative process, and which was supervised by experts. So we launched a global survey in all the world, and more than 4,500 people answered from different ages, different categories, different backgrounds, and they expressed the problems of water issues in their country and the solution that they think about it. And so extensive youth involvement participated in drafting and in the validation process. We made also validation process for our work. And the YDPA is not a simple document. We demand this, we demand this, we demand that. No, it's a data-driven and really expert papers. We even published a scientific article from the YDPA. So basically, it wasn't, and we wanted to show the world that youth are not just the people that we just antagonize the governments, the entities. No, let's work together. And we believe that all the stakeholders can work together to achieve a good output. Because if you antagonize them, they don't work, and you keep marching against them, and nothing will happen. But we suffer a lot, and we don't have time for that. So let's work together. Let's find a common values between us. And so that was, we made the validation process for the answers in international conferences. We made it in Tajikistan, in Dushanbe. We made it in Philippines. We made 2 validation process online. We made a validation process back in COP27. And we work together with the UN missions, and we give them this. So youth is doing this. We want you to accept this and to make commitments. So taking together, the YTPA provides a concrete plan. So we don't say that, do this. No, a concrete plan of action and strategy to be committed for adoption and implementation by all stakeholders in the region-based, in a local-based, in a global scale, including the UN members and governments, international organizations, private sector, civil society, academia, youth, for all the sectors. So basically, the work of the YTPA, which I have, I don't know if, so I have this is a policy brief. So we even made a policy brief, and we showed this policy brief to all the members. And the book YTPA is more than 80 pages. So I encourage you to just have a look on it, read it. If you don't have time for 80 pages, you can just read the policy brief, the 2-pager. Then so the basic things of the YTPA is to just boost the youth around the world from the level of awareness till the level of leadership. This is what we lack, because we found out people are lacking awareness about the climate change. So we have climate ignorance. So the ignorance came from the perspective that they don't know what to do. So the PPAs, which we say in the form of policies, projects, program, and activities, for every case we have PPAs. For example, in awareness, we have water and climate literacy programs, awareness and campaigns. So this is a program. Everyone can implement this in their region. Participation, we have PPAs for empowered action until the leadership. So we have some form of PPAs ready, which is drafted and validated by the participants of the YDPA, which we have, but this process still is open for everyone. So you can put an PPA and work on in your community. So basically, how can everyone contribute? This is not a document that's stated, okay, we demand this, take this. No, this is a continued document, because the water issues in Iraq is totally different than the water issues in Spain that Carmen mentioned. It's the totally different issues in Philippines, which I have seen, for example. They have the lack of water access and sanitation. We have the and in another and they have a problem of flooding event. In Iraq, we have the problem of drought. So different problems needs different solutions. So you cannot just adapt this. No, And some countries' economy is based on, for example, water. And we cannot say that, okay, and if you say that, okay, don't build dams to generate electricity, send the water to us. How can they provide electricity for them? So a lot of nexus is going on behind. So it's not just a black and white, so that you demand something and it has to be achieved. So basically, the problem is local. So you have to find local solutions. If the problem is global, then we have global solutions. And each of you can, how can you contribute? So you can submit the youth-related commitments in the form of the policies, programs, and activities to this link, or just scanning the QR code. The deadline for all inputs is May 15. And so the process of the YDPA still continues. And the final draft of the YDPA will be presented in Dubai in COP28. So we will submit in the form of book to all the UN entities. And we try to work from the UN level. So we are not going upscale, we are going downscale. So from the top to bottom. And we have announced that we initiated the membership, so that we have members in ground in a country, and we demand them in the top level of governmental level. So we go both ways, from upscale and downscale, so that we achieve something. So you are all most welcome to submit your inputs by May 15. And how can you reach us? So you from our social media accounts, so Unify social media accounts, and you are all most welcome to be members. Unify is a platform for everyone, not for Peshang, not for anyone. So it's for all of us to use it and to have a better world. And at last, we say that let's unify for water and climate, and let our actions flow for tomorrow. Thank you so much for taking your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peshang, for sharing your insights. So talking about international cooperation and making an individual impact in countries being affected most by water scarcity, I would like to give now the floor to Grace, talking a little bit about WASH and her impact.
Hi, everyone. So nice to be with you all tonight. I'm in New Zealand, so I'm calling from the middle of the night over here, but I'm happy to be here. So my name is Grace Silver. I'm the Director of WASH Sustainability and Engagement with Clean International. So honored to be here, and I really appreciate YPFP Brussels and Tokyo for hosting this event. So Clean International is a nonprofit, and we focus on full spectrum WASH projects around the world. And for these projects, we partner with local NGOs, and we focus on water provision and conservation. So as the Director of Clean International, I facilitate these partnerships, and I manage data and impacts from our international projects. As some of you have touched upon, thousands of organizations attended the United Nations Water Conference, and we're all working together to achieve SDG 6, which is to provide clean water and sanitation to all. And as climate change continues to exacerbate water scarcity and drought, it's vital that we use new methods to create a different future. So that's what we focus on at Clean. And we really focus on sustainability, data and innovation, and multi-sector collaboration. So in order to create long-term change, obviously WASH projects have to be sustainable. And if they're not sustainable, the community is left searching for their water, and they end up missing out on education and professional opportunities. So in order to avoid this and create sustainable projects, we need to understand why projects haven't worked in the past. So we really need to look in the past in those locations to understand how to create better solutions. And an example of this is in sub-Saharan Africa. At any given time, 1 in 4 hand pumps are no longer working. So in order to prevent this from occurring, Clean International focuses on creating local community-based solutions, which help generate income and equip communities with the knowledge and resources to maintain and improve the infrastructure. So we really focus on building up that knowledge in those communities so that they can really continue to use those projects and maintain that without continued intervention from the nonprofit. So we believe that education and empowerment of the community, along with project collaboration, really helps ensure that these WASH projects will be sustainable. So in addition to focusing on sustainability of WASH projects, technology and data are key players in ending the global water crisis. Without proper data collection, it can be hard to strategically address these water scarcity issues. They're extremely complex, and we really need to understand them from a scientific standpoint so that we can solve them. So to create successful WASH projects, data and data analysis must be used prior to project planning, during implementation, and throughout the impact analysis process. Data collection and management can also be strengthened through the use of technology, which is something I'm very interested in. So for example, what if there were remote sensors that could identify which hand pumps were no longer working in sub-Saharan Africa? This could let nonprofits know or communities know that they need to go in and fix the pumps, and this could provide uninterrupted access to clean water for these communities. In addition to the use of technology in remote locations, aerial photogrammetry and the use of tools such as GIS and Esri also allow for a broader view on climate change. These platforms can help us make predictions and identify at-risk areas for water scarcity, and this allows us to implement solutions before communities hit day zero. So I really believe in using data and technology to create changes and really prevent communities from hitting that day zero and creating those predictions. While sustainable project management and sound data collection help communities, you guys have also touched upon this, multi-sector collaboration is a significant factor in changing the state of water today. As the director of WASH, I'm able to work with our project's NGOs, community leadership teams, technological innovators, and our corporate partners. And I've really seen the strength of this collaboration firsthand. We just have so many partners in different sectors, and we're really able to utilize that and utilize everyone's specialties to create projects that really work on the ground. So working together has allowed us to create meaningful projects, and we're always looking for individuals or groups who want to make a difference. So if you're interested in projects, we work internationally, you can feel free to reach out to me as well. So this conference really focuses on youth as well. And I know as a young adult or student, it can feel daunting to face the global climate crisis. I challenge any students or young adults in the audience to find a way to make a difference in your community or around the world. You can do something as simple as leading a trash cleanup, volunteering at your favorite nonprofit, or leading a fundraiser that focuses on a project you're passionate about. It's important that you actively work to advocate for the things that you believe in. All in all, I believe that we can combat global climate change and water issues. We must look into the past in order to create a better future. We must collectively support innovation in the water and climate sector, and we must find ways to conserve water and protect the climate in our day-to-day lives. It's an exciting time for all of us to come together. For everyone that just went to the UN Water Conference, I know for myself, I was super excited to just see everyone from around the world really focusing on making a difference collectively as NGOs, as government leaders. And I think by working together, we can really achieve the goals of SDG 6. And I'm so excited to be here with everyone. And I appreciate you guys hopping in and listening to the conference today. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace, for introducing WASH and the role of sustainable project management and the need for Indigenous knowledge and community collaboration. And then I would like to turn over to Cyrielle to introduce her work and her projects.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Lena. And it's so nice to follow Grace as I will speak to a little bit of the connections between the Sustainable Development Goals she presented and my work as well. I'm based on the river island of Jajage, which is colonially known as Montreal. And I'm really indebted to the stewards, the original stewards of the land, which is the Ganyagihaga Nation. So I just want to mention that up top. I have a background in international development, and then from there that took me into spatial planning. And I was educated actually in Europe, but now living back in North America. So when I say that I'm a spatial planner, it kind of doesn't really land in the same way, but that's kind of the next paradigm that we're heading towards. So instead of having community planners, regional planners, urban planners, and planning kind of in that more fragmented way as we are still doing in North America, in Europe, they're kind of preparing the planning professionals to view land as more as integrated. So kind of eliminating that working in silos kind of and working in more of an integrated way. So after that, I specialized in marine spatial planning, and that led me to come back to Canada, and I was working in ocean conservation for a while. But then I was really still compelled by planning and that more human aspect, because that was a frustration that I was encountering in ocean conservation is I didn't really meet a lot of other professionals working on more of the human aspect. And for me, climate change is kind of a human driven issue. And so inclusion of this perspective is imperative. So that led me to kind of branch off on my own and create a new way of working, which is why I founded Audacité. So Audacité's mission is to reconnect city citizens and companies to the original source of urbanization, which is waterways. And so I was motivated to start this initiative because I am fascinated by paradox, and there's a really jarring paradox that exists specifically in the Montreal context, but I'm sure a lot of coastal communities can relate, whereby our waterways are the source of urbanization, but then we almost kind of forget that and kind of degrade those environments because ultimately we are land-based mammals. So it's kind of a realm that we don't really understand all that well. And it's also a realm that we don't inhabit, which has led to some really toxic behaviors like polluting our waterways, for example. Like we see that as a way and as not as our realm. So that's why we have allowed for certain trends to persist. So that's why I started my initiative, and I just saw that there was an opportunity to kind of work in this more human-centered way, addressing water issues. And it's interesting because I do call myself a marine spatial planner, but I am from Montreal, which is a river island. So I actually treat water as integrated, and I don't only focus on marine issues, but also on freshwater issues as well. So that's actually what brought me to the UN Water Conference. I was so grateful to be able to participate on an official side event, which was approved. There was something like over 2,000 events that were submitted, and only a very small portion were selected. And so our event was kind of talking about the source to sea approach, which is very much an integrated way of working, and how to kind of connect Sustainable Development Goal 6, which Grace spoke to, which is the clean water and sanitation goal, and SDG 14, which is more of the ocean goal, which is, or it's life below water. And so how we can use the UN Ocean Decade and explore like how ocean literacy plays a role in kind of achieving our goals with the Ocean Decade, but also connecting the UN Ocean Decade with the UN Water Action Decade, and how, we can use business to kind of unlock opportunities and also promote sustainable blue businesses. And within the event, there was representation from Brazil. And so there was case studies presented that were of note. But then what I was able to offer was how both informal but formal education can kind of lead to these connections. And I actually happened to create a swimming program, which does lead into informal education. And my innovation within this swimming lesson curriculum was that I noted that there was an opportunity to also inform students about the local environment, the fauna and flora, but also the climate change issues that we're undergoing, but also teach about swimming. So the program has been running for 2 years. And Yeah, that's a way that we can kind of use what I term as waterway literacy, which is understanding your influence on waterways more generally, not just oceans, but also understanding the waterways influence on you. And this program is tailored to first-time swimmers aged 3 to 6. So that is a really good entry point to create a like blue generation. Wouldn't that be nice in the context of an island like Montreal, but also in other coastal areas? So that's an example of how, yeah, my business is kind of connecting those two approaches, but also thinking in an integrated way, like which is the source to sea approach or water, integrated watershed management approaches also kind of look at our watersheds in a more integrated way. And in terms of the future and what I hope to come from not just this meeting, but also future meetings, hopefully we're meeting about this issue, water, more frequently, before policy, I think there needs to be conceptual innovations, which is the angle that I work at. So waterway literacy is a term that I've been using since 2019, and I developed it because I found that ocean literacy wasn't really landing in my context. And I find that there's ways to kind of make the term more inclusive, but there is value also in ocean literacy. I'm not taking away from that. And then also another concept that I've been working with is blue public space. So within planning, when planners are looking to create recreational space, oftentimes in cities, because in more remote areas, there is usually more access to nature. You can see kind of a very land-based approach. And so in a context like Montreal, you can see in areas that are recreational space, but adjacent to a waterway or have a water feature running through it, you can kind of see in the design outcomes that that was not really considered. And that then trickles down into kind of a mismatch in how the users are using the space and how the space was designed. So in order to optimize our design outcomes, I'm proposing the concept of blue public space to be considered within spatial planning. And also if we dial it back, spatial planning as a conceptual innovation, which is really taking off in Europe, I think also needs to have its day in the sun in North America as well. And that eventually will happen, because if we think about it, planning is a colonial exercise. So that's also something that I want to leave you all with, is now that we're paying more attention to our offshore spaces, especially as a marine spatial planner dealing with development, but also conservation, les enjeux in between the two, like it's important to not view it as the next site of exploitation or development or colonization, and to also think of water as having rights and as an environment that we have degraded up until this point. So thank you.
Thank you, Cyrielle, for sharing your work and your motivations for the UN Water Conference. And now I'd like to give the floor to our last speaker, Iris, to talk a little bit about the digital aspect of water. Thank you.
Alrighty. Hopefully you all can see my little screen. Hello, everyone. I'm Iris Jen. My pronouns are they, them, and it's so great to meet so many of you from across the world, and I'm excited to share some of my expertise and experience. So I'm 19, I'm a gap year student, starting college this fall at Wellesley as college in the class of 2027, and I'm studying international relations, political science. So very fitting for me to be in a space of foreign policy professionals. I'm Chinese American, and I'm based in Columbia, Maryland in the United States. I've been a climate activist since I was 14, and I organize at the intersection of global climate justice, digital organizing, and action for climate empowerment, or ACE. So I started out on the local level with Sunrise Movement Howard County, which is the first youth-led local climate group in my county. And I was motivated to start this through being excited by the Green New Deal vision of the National Sunrise Movement. And I wanted to see a youth-led movement for climate action in my county. And we've galvanized local youth climate action leadership in Howard County that is now working on our school's climate action plan that is led by students. Later on, this is the digital side of my expertise in starting Fridays for Future Digital. Even though I had organized strikes, I couldn't participate in regular strikes, nor was it my thing. So my friend George and I started #DigitalStrike, which became the formal FF Digital organization that led really big digital strikes throughout the pandemic and beyond. And we shifted to organizing global digital campaigns led by frontline climate groups in the Global South, or what Fridays for Future calls MAPA. There's a little infographic here about the most affected people in areas. And now we're focused on building out the accessibility and impact behind digital activism. So as mentioned in the beginning, I am a youth messenger for climate science, and we are a global youth-led climate education organization based in the UK. We have science-based climate change courses on different climate subtopics, as well as a climate science Olympiad that's very similar to a typical Olympiad that, is like a competition solving real-world climate change challenges and having the opportunity to win a trip to COP. And what we do as youth messengers is we meet with the staff to advise climate sciences courses and organizational direction. And the main connection of this role to this whole event is that's how I got to the UN Water Conference. And that's where I got my badge and everything. Through climate science. And I had a really great experience at the UN Water Conference, really great, mostly learning experience for me as someone who's relatively young and just starting out in this international space. And so I just finished up my internship as the spring 2023 international intern. And this is for the Climate Reality Project. And we have 10 global branches. And so I got to do a lot of really cool work on evaluating partnership challenges in our 10 global branches and to advise and direct the direction for our global campaigns. And in the future and continuing beyond this internship, I'll be helping out with youth engagement initiatives. And I think it's really great to mention that because this is a partnership between Brussels and Japan, 2 of our global branches happen to be Europe and Japan. Now, digitization for a sustainable future. This is something, a lot of the principles that I have put together on the slide have really been utilized during this event. It's been really great to see people connecting in the chat and connecting on LinkedIn. That's what I believe is really, really important, whether you learn about something or someone online or offline. Maintaining the knowledge and connection always happens through online. Like at the UN Water Conference, you meet people, you take people's business cards, you take pamphlets on different organizations with displays, but then to stay connected, you connect with them on social media, their website, their email list. And that's how you stay in touch with these things. And that's why a people-centered movement is really what will win us as a sustainable future, something that I feel really strongly about. And we have to utilize our online platforms to form quality relationships to advance our movements. And they have to be intentional relationships that uplift and collaborate and organize. And most importantly, go beyond social media. They can't just be passive, and they can't just be a one-time thing. So yeah, this is all the social media handles, websites and stuff for the organizations that I'm part of. And that is my QR code for my digital business card. Yeah, that's what I got for you all. And there it is in the chat.
Thank you, Iris. And thank you everyone for sharing these inspiring insights and also your incredible work. It's amazing to listen to each and every one of you. I will now give the floor to our participants to ask questions or comments, and please introduce yourself with your name and your organization ahead of your question.
While people are waiting to think about their questions to ask, Lena, do you mind if I jump in really fast?
Sure, of course.
Awesome. So it's super great to hear everyone's key takeaways from the UN Water Conference. And I will say being on this call is just so inspiring because I remember going to the UN Water Conference and not seeing many young people at the events that I was going to. And so the fact that we're all here convening, we were all present in one way or another, and we're all coming together to continue the work beyond the walls of the UN General Assembly Hall, which are so limiting in so many ways, is just a testament to how much we believe in this movement. And so just really wanted to give so much gratitude to everyone here championing these really important issues. I wanted to also add my quick takeaways from the UN Water Conference while people, and I think you're still in the chat, hey. And yes, I wanted to also mention a few quick takeaways based on what everyone has really discussed on the call and ways that we all need to be moving forward in this fight for quality and equitable water. One of the things that I took away was a lot of the sessions that we went to were less technical and more discussion based, more theory based, which is good and it's important. But really the one event that I actually went to that was more focused on how can we actively problem solve with all of these incredible minds in this room was actually a youth-led event, which just comes to show that young people are taking action. Young people realize the importance of taking action and are using conferences such as the UN Water Conference to convene, gather feedback, input, collaborations that then go beyond the conference. And so that was really exciting to see. And there are huge problems that young people are really at the forefront of addressing because young people are disproportionately affected by these issues. A lot of the rhetoric in the conference talked about the tragedy of the commons, where we have this common resource, and when it's unregulated, we can have an overexploitation of these resources, predominantly by more privileged entities, predominantly by more privileged jurisdictions, countries, etc. And this can lead to further inequities when it comes to making sure that people have access to safe drinking water and water for other processes as well. And so it's so important. And I think that this was the key thing that I took away from even this discussion is the importance of equity and talking about justice and equity in this work when we're talking about water, because all of this really falls under environmental and climate justice. When we're talking about water, it really does fall under that because it's so important that we continue to prioritize the voices of those that are disproportionately affected, such as young people in this movement, so that one day we can realize a more equal world, a more healthy and safe world where everyone has equal access. And so just want to end with saying your leadership is so critical. It's so inspiring. And it's something that we need to continue moving on forward with. And young people recognize this as a priority. One thing that I did as youth observer was we went on a nationwide listening tour. We spoke with close to 2,000 young people across 22 states from East Coast to West Coast of the US. It was a 4-month listening tour, and it was so eye-opening and incredible. And one of the top concerns that people mentioned was water and access to safe, quality water. We're seeing these disproportionately affecting people of color, young people, women. So it's so important that we recognize the equity and justice focus of this work. And I can put in the links in the chat to our listening tour, the more fleshed out results of that. But it's something that we need to continue advocating for from the data gathering side, from the policy implementation side. We need more representation in this movement, and you all are leading that change to make that happen. So I'll end there.
Thank you so much. This sounds wonderful. And please go ahead and paste the links in the chat. So we have a comment from Xing Chen from Singapore, and he's representing the National University of Singapore. And he would like to find out more from Iris, as well as the rest of the speakers, on how you managed to have your voice heard as a youth in the environmental climate space and spaces traditionally meant for adults and professionals. So I would just go ahead, whoever would like to speak up and share some insights.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer this question. I think it's definitely something that I'm still navigating as someone who's on the younger end of the professional world, as I'm, leaving the, I guess, under 18 side and entering the real professional world that is dominated by adults. And I think that when I first started out in this movement, it's definitely a real struggle, but to really, overcome the adult dominance, it really takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of persistence, of course, and it takes a lot of community building among youth activists to really feel confident in yourself. And confidence is just really the key, and to really stick with what you know and with what you want to do, and just to not let up, and to really also, depending on circumstances, really understand where people are coming from as well too. And yeah, I think that being in spaces like this really helps with all of that. And it's really great for us to, all share our experiences and support each other. And I think that's the most important thing for combating the intergenerational differences and all that. Yeah.
I'll jump off of that real quick too, and just say, you guys heard me talk about technology and using data. And I think, like Iris said, if you focus on what you know, like if you know a specific thing about hydrology, or if you know a lot about a specific topic, you can just really use your knowledge to back your confidence. So that's something I find that helps me, is just using my education, my past, everything I've learned, and use that knowledge from the things I know to speak confidently about these issues. Because, when you spend so much time researching or talking to other people about it, or even talking to, your fellow youth, younger people about it, you really know what you're talking about, and you know how to represent those issues. So yeah, I think just having confidence in understanding those issues and really speaking to the issues that you know as well.
Surya, please go ahead.
I have a bit more of a critical perspective. I don't know that I'm being heard, but that doesn't stop me from continuing to speak. I think listening and hearing are two different things. And that is something that I have confronted within the, I guess the youth space, is the tokenism that is abundant. I'm not speaking specifically about the UN Water Conference. I'm keeping it more general to youth participations in high-level decision-making, or important meetings or conferences. So yeah, I think it's just whether you're being heard or listened to, it's just to continue to speak and continue to advocate for what you believe in. And then the second thing I would like to add to this conversation, because I'm really passionate about this topic, because I'm 31 years old, and I find that the categorization of us as youth, it can be a bit of a trap, and it's very difficult to transcend these spaces. Like for me, I find it, when I say youth, it almost often dilutes the seriousness of what the initiative is or what I'm speaking about. So that is something that you can maybe navigate, is whether you just speak of your initiative as your initiative, or if you speak of it as a youth initiative, you can play around with the framing. But yeah, I think it's something that we really need to think about, because how is it that we're having 35-year-olds still being considered youth? I think that there's something happening further upstream where there's blockages, like in leadership, like we are not having that type of turnover that needs to occur for the innovation perhaps that we need to step on. So I think, yeah, navigating that has been really interesting. I think I don't have the answers, but I would like to add that to the conversation, that I do see it as a bit of a trap, unfortunately.
Ashang, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I totally agree with Cyril that it doesn't matter that someone listens to you or hear you or not. The most important thing is that what you do for the planet, because we all have carbon footprints, and from the very small scale to all the large scale footprints. So we are saying that, okay, stop fossil fuel to a private company. Okay, so come to Iraq. We are a land of oil, and all our economy is based on oil. So if we shut down the oil mines, everyone will get starved. 40 million people in Iraq. So what's your solution for that? No one can have a solution for right now. Okay, let's close everything now. What happens next? So we will have climate migration. We have many problems, humanitarian problems, hygienic, safety. So basically, we cannot just say that, okay, let's do this. But I can say that as Peshang, I will try to be more sustainable. I will try to have the 3 R's, so reduce, reuse, and recycle. So just a simple step. So and for me, I have this idea. I don't know whether the other speakers or the audience are agreeing with me. Having a small project in your community makes me feel more and more better than being in a UN General Assembly hall listening to all the leaders. Okay, and taking selfies and pictures with the ministers. So that's why this is my first COP was COP27. I experienced the same thing, that when we as youth are going to those kind of big conferences, we just get lost if we don't have an agenda, and if we don't have agenda to work on and to just try to achieve a target, we will be just there to listen, to show that, okay, we have youth inclusion. So basically we are working for their agenda in a matter. This is my opinion. Second is that mostly we try to gain best personal benefits from those things rather than the advocacy. That's why I more like having a personal commitment in a local level than having a big talk things. Okay, talk, and mostly you see yourself in a center of a greenwashing. So we were invited to a diamond gallery in New York, and they claim that they are sustainable. Come on. So basically, I'm from hydrology. I know we don't speak about the ethics of the mind slavery thinking, but we are talking how they harm the ecology of an entire community and country. But again, if we don't be aware of ourselves in the road of trying to be heard, we will see ourselves in a very big things. And as a personal perspective, I see that not every time just shouting and antagonizing the governments will give you a solution, because for example, in the developing countries, we don't have democracy in a top level. So you can do this in Amsterdam, in Berlin, but in other countries, no. So that's why you have to find new solutions if you want to make an impact. Let's work together. You don't cut fossil fuel 100%. I understand, I know, but we all, me and your son, the Prime Minister's son, we are breathing the same air. So let's do a thing. Let's plant trees, 1 million trees, which we have done. Let's make a bicycle line. Let's cut down the private cars that are entering the city centers. So some things can be done in that. And if you work in that, and if they see, they will listen. because they all need us for the elections, whether you are in a developing country or a developed country. So if we work in that, I think we will have a result. Sorry for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Himaja, please.
Thank you. I actually want to add to your point. I think the best way that us as young people can get to the table is by actually being at the table, is by running for a seat for that table. Run for local office. That's my number one advice that I give young people, because that's where you can have such a tangible impact. Even in my town, well, now I've finished my term, but I used to serve as an elected representative for my local town. And the changes that we were able to make just by serving on the board, just by our vote, was massive. Working with our water district to make sure that our water quality was okay. We have a few contamination issues that we're trying to deal with, making sure that more funding was allocated towards that. Doing an environmental justice audit of our zoning bylaws. Huge impact when it comes to managing our land and water. And so all of this were things we were able to do in 2 years. And it really does, so much of these issues, so much of these climate issues, environmental issues, water issues really do matter really do manifest at the local level and need local based solutions. They need to be tailored to where you are. And that's where youth leadership can be so valuable, is by stepping into those spaces, by finding people who will support you as you step into these spaces, is so critical. And also voting, whether it's national elections or state elections or local elections, really make sure you're looking at who you're voting for, and the platforms that they have and what their commitments are to protecting our climate and environment is so critical. And so oftentimes when I even in the spaces of UN advocacy, that's something I'll always mention is, at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do at the UN. It really does depend on our member state commitments. It really does depend on our commitments and what we can champion in our communities, and bringing those best practices up to the UN, and then using that space for collaboration and collection of best practices, because the work really doesn't start and end with the 1 week conference. It's so much more than that. And it's important that we continue to push for that.
Thank you. Carmen, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. I am not young, but I would like to talk about that, because I think that what is also very, very important is to make sure that we have this intergenerational dialogue, and that, this is, and to keep in mind that this is a challenge, water crisis that affects all of us, but maybe also more the young generation. What I think that is good is to make sure that there is a proper interaction between the generations, that your voice is not only heard, but also that you have an impact in what you're proposing, so that there is a channel for your proposals, your ideas, so that it doesn't just is a kind of greenwashing, or just some statements that don't have a real impact in life. And I think that we have both from both sides, we have many benefits to receive from this interaction, because we older people have the experience, but the youth, you have the new ideas, you have a better understanding what is the present context. So I would argue for this intergenerational dialogue. And also another idea I would like to also to support is that I think that for the young people, of course, you can you have the right to demonstrate, to criticize, to express your anger. But I think that what is more important is to make sure that you have also some concrete action, some proposals that can be put into practice to try to find solutions, because just complaining will not lead us very far. So it's also good to focus on these positive actions. And a third idea, we have four. So the third one, it would be that you have to also to vote. So you're not only consumer, but we are also citizens. So we have to think also in terms of our political, the impact of our actions at the political level. And the final thought is that it's very important to have this local action, local impact, but we shouldn't dismiss the importance of these international conferences like the UN Conference on Water, or the high-level political forum on the Agenda 2030, or the climate change COPs. we have to keep in mind that this is a global challenge, that we cannot just solve, closing the tap of water or turning the lights off. We have to also to try to make our views heard, and also to find solutions at international level. Because, for example, the European Union, for the moment, is only responsible for 8% of greenhouse emissions. We ourselves, the European Union alone will not solve the climate change problem. We need to convince others. We need to find an international agreement or international solution for this problem that is affecting all of us. So we shouldn't dismiss the international conferences, because we need agreements that can be broad, it can affect all the nations to find a solution to this global crisis on climate and also on water.
I think often it tends to be forgotten to have this kind of intergenerational dialogue, and I think it is more important, even though we have so many crises going on, and then all of a sudden water and climate change tend to get a little bit forgotten in the background. So it's really important to keep that dialogue ongoing. Yeah, so anyone else has a question or would like to share their ideas or comments? You're very welcome to speak. Just unmute yourself. Everyone is so shy today. Then I will just go ahead and just ask a few more questions. So I would like to ask a question to Grace. What is the need for the future, and how can we young people contribute to ensure safer water and sanitation, especially in those developing countries? So you mentioned you were working on various projects in Africa and throughout the world. And have you seen any differences about your approach at CLEAN? For example, differences in Africa towards Asia or South America?
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much. That's a good question. So I mentioned this a little bit in my speech, but CLEAN International really focuses on working with local NGOs and local community members. And so what we do is we create community leadership teams, and we try to, invite all people of different ages. We invite, everyone from the community to represent those different ages. So we don't discriminate, obviously, gender, sex, age, anything, when we create those community leadership teams. And then our local NGOs on the ground work with those community leadership teams and with us to create a project that's really wanted and needed by the community. And so we might have, it's always a learning experience. That's what I always say, no matter what the community is, we might go in thinking that we have a specific solution in mind, maybe this will be a good solution. And then we end up working with the local NGO and the community leadership team and finding out that the solution that works for them is something completely different than we had originally thought. So I think the best way, to go about some of these projects, obviously, is getting youth involved, not only in the community, but trying to have youth involved in our nonprofit too. So we have, we have interns. I'm working right now with Cal Poly students. I'm working with engineering students on a project to actually create sensors that I was talking about. So I think, just getting youth involved on every level, all the way to those community leadership teams, is really important. And then just not necessarily just focusing on youth, but I think going into any project with a new perspective. I think I think a lot of youth just have all these new ideas and all these creative ideas. So really utilizing that to create these different projects that'll really work in the communities, and not just doing things the way things have always been done, and really just focusing on, there's not one solution that fits all for each community. So yeah, thanks for the question.
And I can believe that there might also come a lot of challenges with local communities, because you have those certain cultural differences. So have you experienced those as well? And do you have developed methods on how to tackle them?
Yeah, I think for us, our strength lies with our partners. So we do partner with local NGOs on the ground who really understand the culture, the customs, and everything in those communities. So we're not going in with a perspective of, you know, what we think is right. We go in and really work with our partners who understand that area. And then we create the projects based off of what they suggest and what they think will work for the community. So I think it's really just about, we've said a lot about listening and, you know, whether our voices are heard. And it's really important that the voices of the people in those communities are heard. And I think, you know, the best way for us to do that, the best way we do that is through our local NGO partners and just really understanding the culture through their perspective, since those are the ones on the ground. We just go in with an open mind and really focus on them and the community leadership teams.
I can imagine that this might be very difficult. And now I'm wondering, because Passion, you're from Iraq. So did you experience that as well when working with international partners in your regional office? Do you think there is some tensions, or do you think there might also need to be a dialogue, because we're talking about very sensitive topics, especially when it comes to water scarcity and droughts?
Yeah. So basically, Lina, the question is very important, and it's really hard to answer because all those things are case specific things. And basically, when we talk about stakeholders, everyone is looking for what they win from the negotiation tables. And so if we put water in the center of the negotiation tables, I don't think that we would be having any problems. But the thing is that they want to take as much as they want from it. So from that perspective, we have some problems. But as Carmen also mentioned, that the conferences are very important to have some goals and recommendation and commitments. So the water conference, one of the commitments and one of the decisions that were taken in the water conference was establishing a new committee to just have for the international waters, that international boundary waters. So basically, that was very important. For example, we in Iraq, we have some water issues and intentional political intentions between Turkey, Iran, and Iraq. We have the same case in Egypt and Sudan. So basically, in all the continents, we have those things. But having a UN entity supervising this is really a huge achievement and very good. Again, when we talk about international organizations, we have many stakeholders. Like even the thing that made me sad was that even the youth constituencies, youth organizations, they don't want to collide together and have one thing. So basically, this is what I have seen, that everyone wants to have the spotlight on themselves, which is really sad. So basically, I should speak. I should be the one that's doing this. So I will come back to my first sentence, was that if we put water in the center of everything, every solution will be solved. If we put the climate change crisis in the center of our everything, so everything will be solved. So this is again a problem. And but we always should seek for the solutions. We shouldn't leave anyone behind. This is the main key, because we all live in this planet together. The fossil fuel companies live with us here, and diamond companies live with us here. They say we will be sustainable. Okay, I know how they work, but I try to convince them to act more sustainable, to bring them and make them be part of the UN Global Compact. So basically, if we think about it like that, we will try to be more diplomatic in that way, and we will achieve the problems easily. And I'm totally agreeing with Carmen also. She said that Europe is only responsible for 8% of the greenhouse gas emissions, but we have 92% from other countries. That's why we should include China in all the negotiations. So the political conflicts between US and Russia should not be reflected in the COP, should not be reflected in the climate issues. So the problem between Ukraine and Russia should not be reflected in the future of all our next generation issues, the climate issues. That's why we should all try. We should need to work more inclusive and put the climate issues in center of all our negotiation. And I think with that, we would be able to achieve something, our goals for the 2030 and 2050. Thank you.
Thank you. You're touching on a very important point. Syria, please, go ahead.
Sorry, there's an airplane just passing overhead. No, something that Grace mentioned, that approach is just so vital, and it made me think of an example where this kind of thing can go wrong, and it also links to water. I was working in a community in rural Cambodia where an NGO had previously been doing work on eliminating single-use plastic, and they were trying to address water bottle usage. So their solution was to buy every household one of those dispensers, and then when I was there, I was just hearing the feedback from the project, and the project wasn't successful because people weren't using it, because in this community, oftentimes there's not electricity available where you can just plug it into the wall. And people were still buying the water bottles because what the need was for cold water. It wasn't just for water in general. So not having a good understanding of the issue you're trying to resolve, like people were just going to the local corner store to get water every time because they would be able to get the frozen water rather than use this dispenser that doesn't plug in, dispenses effectively boiling water because of the climate in Cambodia. So it's really, really important to not also go in with assumptions, but also have that really local grassroots approach, which is really amazing to hear. Grace is working with partners and things like that, because ultimately those dispensers it's wasted resources, and we need all the resources we can if we're trying to get on top of climate change. So yeah, if they're able to be allocated in a way that makes more sense for the community, it's always better. So yeah, that's a water example, and I felt like sharing that one.
I think this one is also a very important topic, which needs much more attention in the future. So I think we have a long way to go to make this awareness and, to provide more information and education on all those topics. And yeah. So are there any other questions or comments from our audience? Someone would like to share their input on what they're going to do right now and their points of view. Maybe some of you have already attended a conference and would like to share their impressions. Okay, I can see no one. Okay, well, yes, go ahead.
Do you mind if I add something really fast? So there's definitely so many ways of getting involved, and just really want to give a huge shout out to YPFP and the work that you all do. If there's anyone interested in getting more involved, I know that YPFP USA hosts a lot of different delegations to different conferences. So there's the Y20 that's coming up. We have a delegation for that. There's other delegations coming up as well. There's so many ways of getting involved, and a lot of them do relate to critical climate and environmental issues. So if anyone's really interested, in learning more about ways to get involved with YPFP's work. I'm sure that the organizers and I would be happy to share more about the different programming that YPFP does. And also we'll give a huge shout out to UN Foundation and the work that they do. So if anyone's interested in learning more about UN advocacy, ways of getting involved with different UN Foundation campaigns around health and well-being, around climate, more than happy to share that info. But yeah, we'll keep the conversation going, and just so grateful for everyone here sharing their work. There's so many great organizations. I've been like rapidly trying to like go on my Instagram and find people to follow, because you all are doing incredible work. So looking forward to keeping the convo going.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's actually a very good idea to connect and to keep the conversation going. Yeah, so I think I would like to thank everyone for our speakers, especially to be here, to be our guests, and taking the time and yeah, just taking a few hours of their weekends to share such exclusive insights. And also thank you very much to our participants being with us. And of course, Ivona and Laura from the communications team always backing us up. And also my director, Petra, and of course, the Tokyo team. And yeah, Dr. Purvi, please, the floor is yours for some final remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lena. It's so amazing to have you all guys here with us. And the things that we've been talking has covered the whole realm of water in and all from, you know, the thing that I want to mention as a closing remark is something that small steps can lead to tangible actions. And tangible actions can surely lead to change that we are aiming for. So as we have Ambassador, we have youth organizations, we have NGOs, and we have like age range from Iris to MAM. So it's like, you know, this particular group is full of experiences and expertise here. On behalf of YPFP Tokyo, this is one thing that I would like to say, that thank you everybody to be here, and it's very important for us to spread and disseminate the information that we all have learned from UN Water Conference. It could not have been possible to lead the delegation there at the UN headquarters without accreditation of YPFP Tokyo. I thank Lauren and the whole team for making such a huge effort and bringing all of us together at the conference, and Lena and team for this wonderful event after conference. I just hope that the wave continues to spread, and I hope that we all keep connected for these issues, and having a community-based solution is something that we all need here right now and for the future. So thank you very much. Thank you, Petra. Thank you, Lena. And thank you everyone for gathering today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the weekend. Enjoy the rest of your day, and let's keep in touch and reconnect.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.